There is a moment that happens to many dog owners, but not all of them understand what they are seeing. You close the door. You walk down the hallway. Maybe you hear a bark or two, maybe you don't. You get in the car, or onto the train, or you sit down at your desk at work. As far as your nervous system is concerned, the separation is complete. You have left. But your dog's experience has only just begun. This video is about what that experience actually feels like from the inside. Not what it looks like on your security camera. Not what it sounds like to your neighbors. What it feels like to the animal whose entire nervous system is wired to orient to you as the source of safety, and who suddenly finds that source gone. And then, once we've walked through that interior landscape, we're going to talk about something else. How to change it. Not with tricks, not with "he'll get used to it," but with the same kind of careful evidence-based work that therapists use with human panic and phobias. By the end of this, you will never again look at a needy, dramatic, or destructive dog the same way. And you will know what to actually do to help them. The moment before the door closes. For a dog with separation anxiety, the story doesn't start when you leave. It starts a few minutes earlier, when your nervous system has already shifted into "I'm getting ready to go," and theirs has learned to read that shift. Dogs living closely with humans build an extraordinarily detailed model of our micro-behaviors. They know the sound of the shoes you put on for a walk versus the shoes you put on for work. They know the particular jangle of keys, the way you move around the kitchen when you're staying versus when you're leaving, the tone of your voice when you say, "I'll be right back." For most dogs, these cues are mildly meaningful. They notice them, they adjust, and the nervous system stays within a comfortable range. For the dog with separation anxiety, those same cues are alarms. The body begins to change before the door ever opens. Heart rate rises. Breathing quickens. Muscles tense. The stress system that lives deep in the mammalian brain, the one some neuroscientists call the panic/grief system, starts to flicker on. This is not intellect. This is not narrative. This is an ancient circuit, older than dogs, older than humans, whose entire job is to scream one message when the attachment figure might be disappearing. Do something. The door. Then you move toward the door. Maybe your dog follows, tail already low, pupils a little wider. Maybe they hover, pacing between you and the couch, between you and the hallway. Maybe they pretend to settle, but their body tells the real story. Weight forward, ears flicking, breath shallow. You say something. "Bye, buddy. See you later. Be good." You might even believe they understand those words as reassurance. What their nervous system hears is the click of the lock. For many dogs with separation anxiety, the first 90 seconds after the door closes are not a gentle ramping up. They are a cliff. Within 3 minutes, vocalization often begins. High, rhythmic, repetitive, escalating rather than fading. Within a few more minutes, you may see pacing, frantic attempts to scratch or chew at the exit points, salivation, panting, sometimes loss of bladder or bowel control despite perfect house training. From the outside, this can look like anger, or spite, or a tantrum. From the inside, it feels much closer to a panic attack. Inside the panic. To understand what your dog is feeling, you have to let go of one very human assumption, that they are sitting there thinking about you in words. Dogs do not narrate their experience to themselves. They live in physiology first, and in association and pattern second. When the door closes and the attachment figure disappears, 3 things happen almost simultaneously in the brain of a separation-anxious dog. First, the attachment system fires. The secure base they use to assess the world is no longer available. In infant research, this is the moment a human baby in the strange situation test goes from exploring to crying at the door. The dog is doing the same thing, orienting toward the exit, vocalizing, searching for the missing figure. Second, the fear circuitry takes over. The amygdala, the part of the brain that tags experiences as emotionally significant, reacts not to a visible predator, but to the loss of a social safety signal. The body doesn't distinguish much between "there is something dangerous in here" and "the thing that keeps me safe is gone." Both feel like threat. Third, the stress axis kicks in. Cortisol begins to rise. The sympathetic nervous system pushes the body into a state designed for action. Move, escape, call, claw at the barrier until the situation changes. Your dog is not plotting. They are not performing. They are drowning. From the inside, separation anxiety is not missing you in the soft way we use that phrase. It is the felt sense that the world has dropped out from under them, that the only stable point in their emotional universe has suddenly vanished, and there is no way to know when or whether it will return. Why the destruction isn't spite. Owners of dogs with separation anxiety often come home to scenes that look like rage. Doors scratched to splinters. Blinds shredded. Crates twisted. Saliva on the floor, urine by the door, feces in places that would ordinarily be unthinkable for that dog. It is tempting, especially when you are tired and overwhelmed and maybe already worried about neighbors and landlords, to read this as payback. If you leave me, I'll make you pay. But spite requires a very specific kind of time travel, the ability to plan for your future reaction to their current behavior. Dogs do not have that architecture. What they do have is a nervous system that, in the absence of the attachment figure, is frantically trying to solve a problem. Chewing the door frame is not a statement. It is an attempt to get to you. Tearing at the crate is not vandalism. It is an animal trying to escape what feels like a trap. Urinating on the floor is not a protest. It is what happens when a body pushed into a high-stress state loses the fine control it normally has over elimination. If you have ever seen a human in a full panic attack, gasping, shaking, begging to leave a room that you know is physically safe, you have seen a very close cousin of what is happening inside that dog. The long minutes. One of the most painful things for owners who finally set up a camera and watch their dog's alone time is how long it goes on. In many separation anxiety cases, the most intense behaviors cluster in the first 15 to 30 minutes after departure. But for some dogs, the panic comes in waves for hours. They bark, howl, pace, throw themselves at the door. They pause, panting, ears straining at every sound in the hallway. A car door slams outside and their whole body jumps. Is it you? A footstep passes by and they rush to the door, only to have the sound fade. The cycle restarts. Time, for them, does not have the same texture it has for you. You left for a few hours. They do not live inside the clock that makes those hours meaningful. They live inside the raw alternation of presence and absence. You are here, or you are gone. In a well-regulated dog, that absence is tolerable. Mild stress, then adjustment, then sleep. In the separation-anxious dog, the adjustment never fully happens. The system never comes down. The nervous system stays in a state of high alert, scanning for any hint that the situation has changed, and firing again and again when it doesn't. How they got here. Separation anxiety has no single origin story. For some dogs, it begins in puppyhood, a nervous system already on a hair trigger, a lack of gradual practice at being alone, a life in which someone is always home, until suddenly they are not. For others, it emerges later, after a disruption. A move. A divorce. A new schedule. Months of constant togetherness, during a pandemic, for example, followed by a return to long workdays outside the home. Some are rescue dogs who have already lost one home or several. For them, the simple act of being left alone may carry with it the echo of every past abandonment their body remembers, even if their mind doesn't. Genetics matter too. Some lines, some individuals, are simply more anxious, more sensitive to sound, more likely to interpret change as threat. What all of these paths have in common is this. At some point, for this dog, alone time stopped being a neutral state and became a situation in which the attachment system, the fear system, and the stress system all learned to fire together. And once those circuits have wired together, They do not untangle themselves on their own. Why, he'll get used to it, fails. There is a very human idea that if you expose an organism to something uncomfortable for long enough, they will habituate. They'll get used to it. They'll stop making a fuss. Sometimes, with mild stressors, this is true. With separation anxiety, it is often the opposite. Dogs whose panic is ignored for long stretches do not typically calm down and fall asleep out of acceptance. They crash out from exhaustion, cortisol still high, nervous system still primed. The next time you leave, the cycle starts again from the same or even higher baseline. From the dog's perspective, what they are learning is not, "This is fine." They are learning, "When I am in full-body panic, no help comes." They are learning that the world is unpredictable, that their signals do not matter, that there is no way to make sense of why sometimes you are there and sometimes you are not. This is not resilience. It is helplessness. And helplessness does not heal anxiety. It cements it. What relief actually looks like. If this were the whole story, separation anxiety would be a life sentence. It isn't. Mammalian nervous systems are plastic. They can learn new associations. They can build new templates for what certain situations mean. For a separation-anxious dog, relief begins the moment we stop asking, "How do I make them stop?" and start asking, "How do I teach their body that this is safe?" From the inside, that teaching feels very different. Imagine this. The same departure cues that once meant panic are now followed, over and over, by absences so short and so carefully calibrated that the panic never fully ignites. The body tenses, and then, before the wave crests, you return. Again and again, the nervous system gets to complete a different story. The keys jingle. The coat goes on. The door closes. There is a small rise in arousal, and then the door opens and nothing terrible has happened. Layered on top of that, something else. Every tiny, tolerable absence is paired with something genuinely good. A particular chew, a stuffed food toy, a scatter of treats that only appears when alone time happens. Instead of, "These signals mean the world is about to end," the body begins to learn. These signals sometimes mean that strange thing where food rains from the ceiling and my person returns before the panic comes. This is systematic desensitization and counter-conditioning, the combination of gradual exposure and positive association that has the best evidence behind it for changing separation-related behavior. From the dog's point of view, it does not feel like training. It feels like the universe becoming slightly less dangerous. The role of medication, from the inside. For some dogs, the panic is so intense, and the history so long, that behavior work alone is not enough. In those cases, veterinarians sometimes add medication, antidepressants, anti-anxiety drugs, not to sedate the dog into compliance, but to change the baseline level of arousal so that learning can happen at all. From the inside, what this feels like is not a personality change. It feels like the distance between "I'm okay" and "I'm falling apart" getting just a little bit wider. It feels like the ability to notice departure cues without immediately tumbling into the red zone. It feels, in other words, like having enough room inside their own body to actually learn that you can leave and come back without the world ending. What your dog knows. There is a question that hangs over all of this. Do they know? Do they know that you are coming back? Do they know that you are trying? Do they know that the exercises and the tiny, boring repetitions are love? Dogs do not think about the future in the way humans do. They do not lie there picturing you returning at 6:15 p.m. or counting down the hours. What they know is patterns. They know that when your smell in the hallway fades, it will eventually return. They know that the particular sound of your key in the lock is followed by the particular pattern of your footsteps, the specific rhythm of your breathing, the unique way your body feels when their body leans against it. They know that when you take their panic seriously, when you change your routines, modify your schedule, stand in the hallway doing 1-minute departures that feel ridiculous to you but life-changing to them, something about the world feels different. Less arbitrary. Less cruel. more coherent. They know, most of all, that there is a before and after. Before, alone time felt like falling through space with no bottom. After, alone time feels like a tunnel with a light they cannot name but can feel. The light is you. You cannot explain any of this to them in words. You cannot tell them about treatment protocols or studies or why you now pick up your keys 50 times a day. But you can change what their body learns when you leave. You can take a life that used to be divided into two states, you here and survival mode, and turn it into something softer. You here, you gone for a bit, you here again, and all of it survivable. For a separation-anxious dog, that is not a small thing. That is the difference between a universe that collapses every morning and one that, slowly, becomes stable enough to live in. And in the only language they have, with the only tools they possess, they will tell you that they notice. In the way their body settles a little faster when you pick up your keys. In the way their eyes soften when you reach for the door. In the way, someday, on a morning that looks like every other, you close the door and walk away, and your dog, who once howled and clawed and panicked at every absence, circles once on their bed, sighs, and goes to sleep. Not because they stopped loving you. Because, finally, their body believes what you've been trying to teach it all along. You leave. You come back. And in between, the world does not end.